What's up, Broncos country? Welcome into the Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports. My name is Moose. Apologies for the nasally sound. Today, I've got the one and only summer cold that seems to be affecting everybody here at the Chat Sports office. It was just my turn to get it. So bear with me on the nasally sound. Also, if I have to lean out and cough a little bit, that's also part of what I got going on. But that does not mean we're going to stop bringing you great Broncos content, talking about the early training camp winners and losers. So this isn't the full scope of all of the winners and losers in Broncos training camp, just so far who I believe are the major standout winners and losers. And remember, there's no actual losers. They're all on the same team, right? They're all competing for one common goal. It's for the sake of the bit. There were some big-name personalities out there yesterday. Diana Rossini and Chase Daniel, former NFL quarterback Chase Daniel, stopped by for their podcast that they call Scoop City, and they interviewed Bo Nix, and they had some glowing things to say, which we'll touch on here in just a little bit. But we still are going live, by the way, today. 4 p.m. Central Time, that's 3 p.m. Mountain Time, for Broncos Breakdown Live, talking about all the latest news and rumors surrounding your favorite team. So make sure that if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on that bell so you know exactly when we go live and when we make a video. Let's talk about what Diana Rossini had to say, right? So she said just left the Broncos practice, the first padded practice that was. She said this defense is going to be a problem in the league, especially with the additions of Talanoa Hufanga and Dre Greenlaw. Second-year quarterback Bo Nix looks like he's a completely different player than he did as a rookie, so poised, confident, and prepared. This is awesome. This is awesome. And just a little disclaimer, as I said before I get into the list of the winners and losers, we all ride together, no pun intended, but let's all just keep that in mind. There's no actual rooting for someone to be a quote-unquote loser in this list. Let's start off. The first winner, it's actually a bunch of winners, the secondary. I couldn't pick just one cornerback or safety to talk about, considering there have been multiple reports about a multitude of players throughout the week. And essentially the things that you need to know is that even the guys like Chris Abrams-Drain are stepping up and making huge plays. Put aside the fact that Pat Surtain is the reigning defensive player of the year. He's going to look great. He's always going to look great. Riley Moss has stood out. Jahdae Barron has stood out. Brandon Jones has stood out. Talanoa Hufanga. I could keep going on and on and on. But the two players that seem to catch the eyes of Sean Payton, at least at the press conference that he was at, were Riley Moss and Jahdae Barron. I think this was interesting that he lumped these two together because I think that there might be a little position battle starting up here in a little bit. Maybe not at first, considering Peyton said they're going to start Jahdae on the inside, but they're also going to get him some looks on the outside corner position. And like I said, he's been really impressing not only his head coach, but his teammates as well, Brandon Jones on Jahdae Barron. It is hard to realize he's a rookie just because of his mindset and how smart and intelligent he is. He flies around, and he's always asking a lot of great questions. He's always around the football. As I previously mentioned, a bunch of names could be diagnosed and dissected about how well they're playing and all the strengths and weaknesses, but that's a different video for a different day. Here's what you need to know. Almost every single player on this Broncos defensive back depth chart has been noted in a positive sense. But a couple of guys that really haven't been focused on, but even P.J. Locke is getting some praises, considering he did go through that offseason back surgery where a lot of people are like, dude, he looks like he's a foot taller. So all really good things, and that's why I have the entirety of the secondary as the winner. But then let me go back to what I said previously about what Sean Payton said about Riley Moss and Jahdae Barron. I think there might be a position battle coming sooner rather than later. I think that there is a very real possibility that week 3, 4, 5, and beyond, Jahdae could start at the outside corner. So I want you to pick an outside cornerback too for me, because obviously Pat Surtain's on one side. Riley Moss or Jahdae Barron. For Riley, RM. For Jahdae, JB. Right now, I think it's about as close as it could get. But for the sake of week 1, I'm going to go Riley Moss because Jahdae's going to start on the inside. Let's go to our first loser. and that's Drew Sanders. And again, I take no pride in calling someone a loser, especially someone who's had unfortunate luck like Drew Sanders definitely has. So we have to talk a little bit about the injury that just happened at Broncos training camp. And obviously, it wasn't being reported at first that it was a ligament injury. A lot of people thought the worst and that it was going to be a tendon injury. The good news is that it isn't a tendon injury. It is a ligament injury, which will basically cut that recovery time in half. However, you are still looking at about 5 to 7 weeks right now before Drew Sanders can even play again. That puts him right around, week 4, week 5, which would be against the Bengals or the Eagles. But let's talk now about Drew Sanders, the player, because you cannot mention Drew Sanders now without saying injury prone. It's just baked into his game right now. And when he's on the field, he's incredibly talented. There's no denying that. And I know it's cliche, and I know you've heard this a million times, but that age-old saying, the best ability is availability. I know, we always hear that. But there's a reason that people say it. It's true. You've got to be able to play for the team that drafted you or the team that you're currently on. If you're always out and you're always injured, you become a liability. And I have talked ad nauseum on this channel about the one weakness, I'll call it more of a red flag, on this Broncos defense. It's really the only one that I can find. It's the depth at linebacker. And not because of the talent, but because of the injuries. Greenlaw's been injured. Singleton's been injured, which we'll touch on here in just a second. And Sanders is now out again. So I've been the one clamoring for the Denver Broncos to go out and sign a veteran just to get another body there that can end up being a veteran presence in that room and stabilize the linebacker depth. But I'm not Sean Payton. I'm not George Payton. So we'll see what comes of it. But right now, all we know is that Drew Sanders is going to be out, which is why he falls in the loser category. Before we get on to the other winners and losers, guys, check out what I'm wearing today. It's the Broncos hoodie that is, for sale right now at Fanatics, which is a very, very good deal they got going on over there. And here's what I did. I put the link to this hoodie, in the comments and description of today's video. If you want to sport the exact thing that I'm wearing, go down and click the link that I have also put, like I said, in the comments and description of today's video. It's lightweight, it's breathable, and believe it or not, I've gotten a lot of compliments on this when I'm walking around town. They're like, hey, where'd you get that? I got it at Fanatics. So one more time, comments and description of today's video to get the Denver Broncos hoodie that I've got on. Let's go to our second winner. Now, I could have put the younger wide receivers like Troy Franklin and Pat Bryant, and I briefly flirted with that idea. But then when the Courtland Sutton extension broke yesterday, I had to put Courtland in there because he's also been having a really good camp, and he now got the bag. And I don't think I did it as much justice as I wanted to yesterday. I can't state enough just how good this deal actually is for both sides. It's a 4-year, $92 million extension. It's $23 million a year. That sounds like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money, except when you consider what the guarantees are and the fact that the deal doesn't even kick in until next year. That's all really good signs. Zach Stevens reporting this right after Courtland Sutton signed his extension. He's focused on chasing a Super Bowl. Think about that. You got guys like Terry McLaurin out there right now trying to get every penny they can. And it's their money. They have the right to do that. Courtland understands the spot that he's in. He understands his place and his value to this team and what his contract could do for Bo Nix in the future. So now he's the 18th highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. And he's okay with that. More than okay with that. And same with the Denver Broncos. It is a really good position to be in right now, especially because you have a wide receiver who is kind of shedding that diva stigma that a lot of wide receivers have, which is like they want their money and they want it now. Well, of course they do because that's how they make a living. But Sutton knows that at his age, this is probably his last major contract extension, right? He's most likely going to be a Denver Bronco for the remainder of his career, which is awesome. but he also realizes that the window of opportunity to win a Super Bowl lies within the details of this contract. And I think he understood that better than anybody. So did you like the Courtland Sutton extension? I absolutely did. So I'm typing my yes down in the comment section below. If you think it was an overpay, at least let me know why, like I said, in the comment section. But I should see a bunch of yeses down there because, one, it's Courtland, and two, it was a really, really team-friendly deal. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm trying to catch my breath as we're going through this. Our next loser, Alex Singleton. And this one, it was really tough to put him in as a loser because it's really not all that bad. He does have an injury. He broke his thumb yesterday, but he's only going to miss about a week. So the injury itself isn't that bad. But I think there's an overarching theme and umbrella to why I put him in the loser category. Zach Stevens being the one that kind of reported this, could miss roughly a week, could be back by the joint practice with the 49ers. Again, the injury itself is not the problem. The big problem is that Sanders and Singleton, the reasons that they made the loser category is they can't catch a break. They are injury-prone players. Singleton coming off the ACL that he suffered against the Buccaneers in Week 3. Sanders now coming off the Achilles of last year and now has the ligament issue in his foot. And let's go back to Singleton for a second because that's who we're focused on right now. Mostly sidelined for almost all of last year. Started off the year pretty hot, actually. If you had 31 tackles in 3 games, that's pretty damn good. Problem is that at 32 years old, or 31, my apologies, and coming off of an ACL tear, and now you got a broken thumb. You weren't that great in pass coverage when you were on the field last year. And with the addition now of Dre Greenlaw, I don't want to say the writing's on the wall for Alex Singleton, but now the window to really show the ability to make an impact on this defense is starting to shrink gradually. And that's not to say that he won't make an impact this year. I think he will. But there's a reason that in almost every video that I've said, if they can stay healthy. And a lot of Broncos fans were like, will you stop saying if? They're all healthy. No, I talk about the guys that are injury prone. I'm not out there talking about if Bo Nix can stay healthy because he hasn't shown any injury history. I'm talking about the guys that have been injury prone throughout the entirety of their careers. So, again, if he can stay healthy, he's a good asset to the Broncos. If. So, hopefully the thumb thing, like I said, is no big deal. It doesn't get re-aggravated. Right now, he's only going to be out about a week, so I'm not super concerned about the severity of this injury. Just a brief little water break. Want to take a little time out from the talking about Broncos training camp. Are you going to watch the Hall of Fame game this Thursday? We definitely are here at Chat Sports. Going to be in taking notes from some of the other guys that have been longer hosts here, kind of see how they dissect their football games that they do here. But let me know in the comment section down below, yes or no. It's Chargers versus Lions. And I realize, watching the Chargers is not on everybody's to-do list, or the Lions, and plus there's not going to be a lot of starters. But outside of that, we do have NFL football this week. So I'm going to be watching it, but let me know in the comment section down below. Let's talk about our last winner. I know it's a long video. My apologies. It's Bo. Can't have this list, at least right now, without Bo Nix. Diana Rossini said it the best. He looks like a completely different player. Dre Greenlaw went to the podium and started talking about Bo Nix being one of the main reasons why he chose Denver. And he said, once you start looking at the teams in free agency, the next thing that you want to look at after the defense is who's got a quarterback that can go make it to the Super Bowl. That's the mindset. Watching Bo play, he can run, he can throw, he can do everything on the field. One of the strongest arms I've seen, especially as a year 2 guy. So what are Bo's improvements that we've seen throughout training camp? Play call operations have definitely improved. His ability to spit out Sean Payton's plays has completely clicked for him. His arm conditioning and maintenance has gotten better. He said he didn't want to peak until he got to the playoffs, so he's not going to overextend or overexert himself. His connections with guys like Troy Franklin, Pat Bryant, obviously Courtland Sutton, but specifically the young players, has definitely improved. and his overall swagger and demeanor. He just looks and acts like a different quarterback, which is why the sky is the limit for Bo Nix. Can we all agree on that? It is. This guy is limited by nothing. He's put on a little bit of weight, put on a little bit of muscle. He's acting like the leader of this team, which is what you want out of your franchise quarterback. And usually, you don't see this from guys until years 3, 4, and beyond. The fact that he's a year 2 player exerting this kind of leadership and fortitude with the other young players around him is completely 100% the track that you want to see him on. And I can't wait to see what his stat line looks like in 2025. That's going to do it for us. I realize it was a long video. Thank you so much for sticking around with me, especially with my, sickness that I got going on. A reminder to subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Like the video if you haven't. And as always, be cool.